Hi everyone, and welcome to the HYPACK 2022 software webinar. My name is Brittany Hines, Marketing Specialist here at HYPACK, and I will be your host for today's presentation. Before we begin, I just want to remind you about the question box on the side of your screen. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please submit them using the question drop-down box. Also, if you are unable to hear us or the screen goes blank, please comment in the chat box so we can fix the issue. For today's webinar, we are going to show you all the new features and updates in our HYPACK 2022 version. Our presenters for today's presentation are John Lindberg, QC Manager, and Rob Baird from HYPACK Technical Sales. They both bring great expertise and experience to our company, and we're so happy to have them here with us today to talk more about the HYPACK 2022 software release. With that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Mr. Rob Baird.
Oh, thank you so much, Brittany. Here we are live in Savannah, Georgia for What's New in HYPACK 2022. It's that time of year, and again, so excited to take part in this webinar. We're here with the HYPACK Quality Control Manager, John Lindberg, 24 plus years at HYPACK, previously Technical Support Manager, again now Manager of QC for us. So as usual, John, we'll hand it off to you to show us what the new features are in HYPACK.
Thanks, Rob. Yep, here we are. Hope everybody's safe out there. Thanks for attending, and we'll show you some of the new features that we've added. Quick overview here. For most of you probably know already that we've released HYPACK 2022 January 18th. And anybody that's on taking advantage of the maintenance plan, you can download it and install it, no problem. And run it. So it's free to all maintenance plan members. You can download. Just go to our website, www.hypack.com. Tons of new features in there, new features, enhancements, bug fixes, and so on. We'll touch some of them there, but there is I believe Carolyn wrote an article on what's new and some of the updates that are in our sounding better that you can download from the website. Okay, and let's see. It also contains all the updates that we've released in our quarterly releases over the past year. So the 2021 quarterly releases, I'll touch on some of these in case you're not familiar with them. Okay, there are 3 new packages that have come out this year in 2022. We've actually sunsetted, is that a word, sunsetted? I think it is.
Sure thing.
Today it is anyway. A few packages and replaced them with HYPACK Echo, HYPACK Geophysics, and a new one called Water Quality Mapping. HYPACK Echo kind of takes place of the ultralight program, and HYPACK Geophysics is replacing essentially sub-bottom and marine search, having those features and then some. And then Water Quality is kind of specific towards ADCP and other environmental sensor devices and processing. Okay, and that's all available in the HYPACK 2022. So if you have an older, or you're on the maintenance plan, you check your license manager and it says you have a HYPACK Ultralight, don't be panicked when you run the license manager and it says HYPACK Echo. It's still basically the same package, but you get a few more features. Okay, one thing that we've did differently back in one of the quarterly updates, we've offered this soft license. This is an integral part of HYPACK 2022. It's a web-based license activation. Guess what? No need for a dongle, right? I mean, that's a big plus right there. So dongle be gone. Go.
I thought we would see a lot more interest in this for the dredge market. We haven't really seen that yet, but we still do anticipate that many of our power users out there are considering this swap, and it's very easy. You could contact us. And we can walk you through the process, but it's very simple. There's no extra charge. And yeah, so please do consider it if you want to get rid of that dongle and not be on the hook for it if it's lost. It's much easier to do it this way and not need to worry about a single USB costing you $10,000 or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no chance of losing it or breaking it. It's just or leaving it behind. When you have the web-based license activation, so long as you have some sort of an internet connection, you can activate it anywhere, and it works great. You want to use it on another computer, just simply deactivate it on your current computer and go reactivate it on another one. It's pretty much immediate. easy transfer between computers, and a couple minor disadvantages if you're using ARCs and S63 charts. At the moment, they're not supported. Hopefully we can figure out something on how we're going to support that in a not too distant future. And also, if you happen to have a leased license, you can't convert to a permanent license. Not a big deal. You just get another code in your email, and then you can just use that. So if you decide to update to a permanent license. Okay, we're gonna get into some of the other features of HYPACK now. We've introduced a project wizard about a year ago, where it makes it a lot easier for a customer to kind of create a new project, copy projects, and so on. We've added a few more features over the past year or two pertaining to geodesy. One is you can set your geodesy by location, as you see over here on the screen, and simply just enter approximate latitude, longitude, and it's going to automatically select the closest UTM north or south zone. So it's a lot easier to set we always say, when in doubt, you're not really sure what you're working in, set it to UTM, and then you can always convert it after the facts. So we have that option. We also have the option to click on a map. So if you choose that, you're gonna, this visual geodesy map will pop up. You can zoom in and zoom out with your mouse wheel. And you could, as you scroll around on the screen, it'll show the latitude and longitude at the bottom. Also, the zone in which you're scrolling over to. You just click on the screen, and your geodesy will be set.
These are just continued ease of use updates for HYPACK users. Years ago, people said, "Wow, it is so daunting to get into geodesy and figure out what you need." But especially if you have repeatable surveys or just simple surveys, you need to get out and do them. There are now ways for you to go about it in geodesy, and our programmers have really cleaned it up to a point where it's more user-friendly, and there's more to come.
Yeah, a lot of times, depending on the survey, they're not necessarily concerned about a specific projection or whatever. They just want a simple approximation of where they're located. They're not going to plop it on Google Earth, or not concerned about local coordinates or anything like that. They're just concerned about lat long. So this is the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The shell, we got a bunch of features in the HYPACK shell. This is a new one, this hazard contour control. If you hit the settings drop-down menu and go all the way down to the water level and hazard contour, it'll bring up this little pop-up, and you can set your water level in here and hazard control contour control value, and then you have a couple contour modes on how you want to display them. And basically, it's going to take your DXF contours that you've created in TinModel and highlight the appropriate hazard contour and show any of the contours that may be above or below that hazard contour. So that's a new feature. And
just a use case that we were told about yesterday was, when getting out of the way of maybe a huge container ship or some other obstruction in a navigable channel, you're in the river, you need to cling to the side, you need to get over, and you have to have an understanding of where you are relative to the hazards potentially in the water. So it's nice to be able to have a certain contour level highlighted for you to cling to and know that you're safe within it. Yeah, especially if you're just doing some route planning or whatever, and you're good to go. So. Okay, some more features in the shell we've added, and there's more on it later. There's a drop down for the environmental editor, which is basically a version of our magnetometer editing program. I'll touch that in a little bit. And also the OBJ editor, which is specific for editing OBJ, which are 3D shape files, which you can bring into real-time cloud and also now hardware, and we'll touch a little bit on that. We've done some updates for languages, for Polish language interface, Ukrainian language interface, and you want to really mess with one of your surveyors there, just go before you leave, just kind of go set the language to Polish and walk out and see how well they do the next day when they turn on the computer. Also, we have some changes to the ENC charts. This was a request by, I believe, one of the Army Corps districts, where when you have an ENC chart with the river miles being drawn, sometimes the chart gets really messy with a lot of different items, and it's a little hard to visualize those river miles when you're working in that area. So, put an option in the S57 display options down here. And you can increase the size of those mile markers. So here's the normal view, and that's actually a relatively clean screen. Not seeing any sounding or anything, but you can see how those could easily get lost
amongst everything. And here's twice as big, I guess you would say, in terms of size on the screen.
Useful tip from somebody out in the field that saw a need for this and asked us to make a fix for them, or at least update it, and here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Project colors, we changed the project colors a couple of years ago to use the HYPACK color files. Works pretty well. We were looking for an easier way to be able to change colors for different maps in survey. A lot of people don't realize that there's actually 6. You can have up to 6 maps in survey. Why you would do that? Well, when you're on some of these dredges too, you might have multiple monitors and you want to display different styles of colors based on whatever channel depth or true depth, and so on. And so in the shell under the sounding colors tab, we put the option in here where you can control the colors and load up specific HYPACK color files for each map. So the screen here is showing the differences, 6 different color files for the 6 different maps.
That's nice if you're on a dredge where you have maybe a manager or supervisor that wants to see overall like what you have to get down to your grade. There are options to paint your matrix based on the channel minus depth. You might want to see, okay, I have 1 or 2 feet for us to get down to grade, and you might want to shade that differently, completely different color file than say the one that's based in real world elevations that's shown against other charts. So yeah, it's very nice to be able to see this on multiple monitors and have those different color charts.
Okay. Made some changes in GEODESY. We changed the VDATUM a bit this past year too. One of the issues we've had with VDATUM is, I guess when we developed it in HYPACK, which goes back to, 2013, 2014, we didn't anticipate NOAA actually updating the VDATUM zone so frequently. I think some of the zones get updated pretty much, a couple times a year. So we initially had a VDATUM install, which is basically at the time it was another DVD that was about 1.5, 2 gigs of data. And for most of the customers, we usually only need 1 or 2 VDATUM zones. So it seemed a bit ridiculous to have to create and install for this. Now you could just go right up to the NOAA site, that vdatum.noaa.gov, and download the specific zones that you want. And before we had the big kind of long drawn out name showing over here. This is the only way we could do it right now, is that you grab that folder from the NOAA website. It's a zip file and everything's stored in a subfolder, and a little bit cryptic, but it's, if you're downloading 1 or 2 zones, it's pretty obvious. And then if you go to the NOAA website, you'll see the long name that's listed there. But it's just from a user standpoint, whenever if you get on the NOAA mailing list and stuff, they usually let you know when there's some updates and whatnot. So enough to go up there, grab the latest VDATUM zone, copy it into your HYPACK datum/VDATUM folder, and you're good to go. Still works the same, but we just made it a lot easier for customers just to go and download only what they need. And with installers, you're always at the mercy of IT, right? That's one of the big issues, is that you might not be able to use the installer. In this case, now you just take that file, just copy it right in the folder, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's very nice. We used to have to worry about several gigabytes of file storage size just to house all of these VDATUM files. So it's nice that it's really up to NOAA, and we just go out to them now, and they take care of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing we added was the functionality of using EPSG codes. Let's see, European Petroleum Survey Group, right?
You got it.
Hey, okay.
Hey.
Yeah, if you go to just Google EPSG, it'll bring you up to the page, and every projection out there has specific EPSG codes, and these become common, obviously in Europe. A lot of offshore people use and stuff too. And we have a tab now in the geodetic parameters where you can just enter the code. If you know what the code is, type it in here where it says EPSG code, hit the checkbox, and it's automatically going to set your geodesy. There are some caveats there, is that some of them we don't support some of the vertical datums, and then I forget what they call them, the combined horizontal vertical datums either. So those still have to set manually. And it basically uses our geodesy engine, looks at the EPSG code and finds the corresponding one that's within our GEODESY. So it's another useful tool for a lot of customers. Let's see. Okay. Hardware. I mentioned about the OBJ editor, and we've introduced that about a year ago, maybe, for the real-time cloud. You can bring in your own boat shapes in there. There's a lot of programs. You might even have a CAD version of your boat somewhere. You can export to an OBJ file, which is kind of an industry standard 3D, very simplistic file. And then there's a ton of you could download free downloads of OBJ files. For example, and we've added this feature to be able to have to load that right in our hardware program. Before, we were specific to our 3D shapes, and you had to really understand how that works. But now, if you can get a file from download from a website, like I did over here, I took somebody did a nice Dodge Challenger, so I kind of loaded that as my boat, my vessel, my Challenger vessel, and you'll see you can. The problem is with these downloads, a lot of times there's no reference. It's not at the center of the vessel or whatever you want to call it, whatever you're using. You can use a rubber duct for all that matters, there's no reference as to what's considered the front of the vessel. So you can use the OBJ editor to scale and rotate and so on. You can do this right in the hardware program too. So we've added that.
It's another user-friendly update to hardware, which is something along with GEODESY that's been worked on a lot in these last few years. But it's a big deal with these OBJ files, as John mentioned, because it was like the Wild West. You didn't know what you were getting when you downloaded them off the internet, but now you can scale them, you can rotate them, and change the boat or vessel reference point, the Dodge Challenger reference point, and make it what you need it to be for your use, in survey.
Yeah. And then a couple other features that we've done is added a new test device window in hardware also. This is certainly aids with some of the network devices. You just get a little bit more information when you're looking to verify that you are connected. You're seeing an actual data string come through and so on. This was a need for a couple having some issues, basically troubleshooting a couple LiDAR units, and we felt the need to thought it would be a good idea to help with some of the QC information, be able to see some actual data coming through to verify that we're actually connected to it and receiving data. So we've added that. And then also down below here, double click on a device, any of your devices in the list will automatically pop up that that setup dialog, which is really useful. So just a couple more user it's more intuitive, because you used to have to click on it and select it by knowing the tab you needed to select, etc. So yeah, anything that's more intuitive to our users is certainly prioritized now. And then survey. If you open up survey in 2022, it's going to look a little bit different. We've had a code name of RAD survey due to the code base that was being used. It sounds kind of cool, maybe in a nerdy way or whatever. I don't know. Maybe a Bart Simpson kind of way.
Cowabunga, man.
RAD survey, right? You'll notice that the icons are different. That's really and with a new code base, it has all the same functionality. We find it more reliable and stable, and the idea is that this is going to be a whole lot easier to update with new features in the future. The old survey program is something that had been around for a number of years in some form, and it was using some outdated stuff, and this was the only way to move forward. And kudos to the guys, John Marinuzzi and Ken, and those guys that were all doing a lot of work on this and getting it into a great shape. And we released it as beta mid last year or so. Yeah. I don't know. We've had a few people using it, but we've got a lot of good feedback from it. And now you're stuck with it. So, but it's really cool. We've some of the dialogues we combined together to make it a little bit simpler and add some nice features. So hopefully people will enjoy the new RAD survey, new survey.
As old survey rides off into the sunset, although it's don't show them. It's still available if you really need to go find that. But again, John Marinuzzi, who I think of as our dredge guy, but you know what? He has taken on the charge of taking survey into this modern millennium, and here we are. I think it's going to really help out with all of the different device drivers that interact with survey, because it can improve the drawing of those drivers and the vessel on the map. We've seen that there's less lag or latency, that you don't see that where the vessel will lag behind. It's more realistic and smooth motion of the vessel in survey. So nice job.
We've also added the functionality of a auto matrix for single beam. This has been a request for a number of years. You can do it with the old, the standard matrix, but the next step was to add a simple, make it a little easier too. You just go to the chart drop-down menu. You're doing single beam. You can go down, click on the single beam matrix option there, and it's going to pop up this dialog where you can set your enable the auto matrix, and then it's going to display your breadcrumb trail on your screen, color coded based on depth or what have you. So it has the same basic options as the multi-beam auto matrix. So that's there now too. We've also added a device health window. This is a program that can run alongside survey. You go under options, shared memory, and go to device health. It's going to bring up this window over here, which is going to display all the various drivers that are running in survey. And basically you've got red and green lights, yellow lights too. So you see red, you might have a concern with timing. It tracks the device timing from HYPACK, HYSWEEP, and side scan devices. So the color warnings, you can set a few of the cutoff values in terms of seconds for the screen. So if you notice that there's a lag of a timing issue or something that you're having, maybe UTC versus your local time, it's going to show bright red there on the screen, and you know enough to go back and see what I need to resolve this issue. And what's nice about this program too is if you leave it open, you close out a survey, come back in, it'll automatically stay open. So you can always have that pop up.
It's nice to give you the warm fuzzies. If you're the surveyor, obviously you can see what's working for you, what device might be giving you an issue here in the device health window. But it's also a nice way to save real estate. If you're out on a survey, who knows how many monitors you have, you're spreading out different windows from proprietary software across however many screens. So now you could take all of those, error message windows or, device status windows from other softwares and just bring them into this one dialogue, and HYPACK will take care of it for you.
Yeah, nothing like rushing through a survey and you're collecting data all day and you didn't really have time to do a whole lot of checking. You get back and you have a timing issue. And you got to kind of resolve all of that. So most of the time there's a way out of hell when you're trying to fix that stuff. But you don't want to be there in the first place.
We're trying to help you out along the way and trying to make sure you collect your data the way you should.
Yeah. The survey log program, we've had this for a number of years. It was originally developed for one of the Army Corps districts, and we've added a few more features to this. One is that it'll automatically save the data to a CSV file in the background. One of the issues that we've had is that you're running and you're collecting data, you inadvertently close the screen, you lose all the information that you've collected. So all that gets saved in the background, so you can reopen it. It's going to list all your files that you've collected. You can even import, if you want to recreate your survey log, you can import the log file that you've already collected. You can import and export all that header information rather than having to manually enter it every time you switch to a new project or a new version of HYPACK or moving over to a computer. It's simply just save your header information to your documents folder and then just import it next time you get a new version of HYPACK or have to move over to another computer. And we're also, we've had the export to PDF. We've also added the functionality of exporting to CSV and Excel file formats. So you can import the information into another piece of software. And then we've also had the option, there's a little checkbox here for log targets. And while you're logging your survey line, if you mark any targets, it's going to append the information to the memo section of the spreadsheet in the survey log program.
Now, John, I know for some surveyors, we will never be able to take away their notebook. It will never be retired. Mm-hmm. And that's understood, and that's all well and good. But for some folks nowadays, they want everything to be digital. They don't write anything down. And we're just putting more and more options for the user into each of these dialogues, and the survey log is no different. So now, you know, if you don't want to keep your traditional logbook, hopefully we've added enough features here where you can keep track of everything right within HYPACK.
Yeah, we're making it a lot easier to, you know, if you're exporting to one of these formats, is that you can easily add everything into a report rather than have to just try to transfer and type. My typing is atrocious, you know, so to me to enter all that information from a logbook into a spreadsheet, you know, good luck watching grass grow, you know. Okay, device drivers. We've been working on a bunch of device drivers. We worked on this about a year ago, maybe, the EchoTrack E20 driver. We've added the support for the 32-bit echograms, but we had noticed it was survey-wise it was okay, but during the processing, and we'll cover that a little bit later too, is that it took a while to load up the files. So we've modified the driver. Works a lot better. We have better understanding of how the unit works, and we actually been out in the field with it and tweaked it the way to our liking and hopefully to customers' liking. So we've been, you know, and all the editors are updated to process this data. And then we've got quite a few different survey device drivers that have been worked on. This is just a sample of them, you know, a couple bug fixes and some new features. The GEODESY driver, which are, you know, kind of a generic range azimuth system that works with GEODESY. All the Trimble units. We've added support for the S6. Magnetometer driver. We did some changes to the marine magnetics device drivers. Added support for the J.W. Fisher Proton 5. The little weird bug in Planix in the POSIM-B DLL. If you weren't using it for tide and you just unchecked it, it would actually crash. It was just really strange. No apparent reason for that. So that's been fixed. Most people are using RTK tides with the POS anyway, but you know, if you don't choose not to, you don't have to worry. It's not going to crash. Did some changes to the Towfish driver, and we added a new driver for the Vector Nav IMU. I think it's a fairly low-cost IMU, really great for drones and things like that. And we've added that in as a device driver in hardware. A dredge pack driver, generic cutter, DQM parser based on our GenDev parse, specific for DQM cutter dredges. Some modifications to the NOAA online tide reader, reads right from the NOAA website for whatever tide gauge you choose. We've added some functionality to the inclinometer driver, the 2 gig engineering, and also Telestra SignalQuest sensors have been added. And then did some changes with the NEMA, the GPS driver. The Trimble PTNL GGK codes have a long list of quality indicators. They get into like location RTK and all these other things. So we support that if you output the PTNL GGK.
I'm excited, and I know all the dredgers are out there. The last 2 slides have shown a bunch of drivers. The DQM mechanical on the previous one, that's for our crane setups. And that's, again, we added the US digital T7 sensor. And then to add this Telestra SignalQuest sensor is really nice for the inclinometer driver. And eventually, for use with excavators too. It's a very rugged system, and Telestra has engineered that. So kudos to them.
HYSWEEP survey. This has been an issue before where people have set up their hardware a little bit incorrectly. They forget to, they might have added the IMU under HYPACK hardware, but not in HYSWEEP. So now you get a big fat warning saying that it's not set up in HYSWEEP. This is just really helpful. We mostly did it for the support department who's had to deal with this before, and you rather get the warning ahead of time and call support rather than how do I fix it after I collected all this data. So you get the big warning light, you click on the warning light, it says no MRU device set up in HYSWEEP hardware. So that should trigger something and let you know that you need to go back into hardware and figure it out.
Yeah, we always used to get those calls in tech support. Those are the worst ones where people think they've collected all their data and then they realize what they're missing when they get back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's the worst feeling and the worst call to make or to receive. So, in tech support, that is. So, yeah, this is just keep surveyors, out on the jobs and letting them know that they're collecting what they should be.
Yeah. And then some more updates for the HYSWEEP survey device drivers too. So a couple fixes like the advanced nav INS driver. We're supporting the new AML 3 and 6 SVPs right in HYSWEEP. So you can import that right into the HYSWEEP survey. It gets embedded in the raw file. It's pretty nice. We updated the Kongsberg drivers, so we support the KML datagrams. A few other things. We actually has a GPS transfer option. So if you're running SIS in the background or whatever, and all the position and everything is being imported into there, we can just take that datagram and pass it on to HYPACK survey. Some changes to the WASP driver. The Klein drivers have been updated to the latest SDK, and then also the vector nav driver available at HYSWEEP as well. The TPU editor, we've added the IHO exclusive order to the estimation graph parameters based on the updates to the IHO standards back in March of 2020. So that's another option in the TPU editor. We're also toying with the idea of being able to put some custom orders in here too in the future because some of the countries have been using their own. So we'll see how that goes. I think that's on the roadmap over the course of next year, and so we'll add some more functionality to the TPU editor. Side scan survey. We have support for the EdgeTech 4205. All the client SDKs have been updated here too in side scan survey. We've removed the downsampling for the displays also. Just it gives a much nicer, crisper what do you call waterfall display. And if you look at the background here, this is the new display versus the old one. You just catch a lot more detail with the removal of the downsampling. And then also we have a new water column display window that you can pop up in the program.
Again, continued improvements with our side scan survey over the last few years. It just looks more and more like what you would see from the proprietary softwares of the different side scan manufacturers. And that's something that we've noted across the board with a variety of manufacturers. And so nice job for this to continue to get better and to improve the picture.
Yeah. And we have this sound velocity program. Again, we've also added support to the for the AML 3 and 6 in here also. So you go when you run the sound velocity program, you go to File, Import from AML. We still support the AML, the earlier device. Now we have the option, the AML 3 option in here. Again, it works with both the 3 and 6 models, and it connects via Wi-Fi. Pretty straightforward. It's really easy to use. They were kind enough to send us one for testing. AML, and was able to drop it over in New Haven Harbor, drop it down in the water. It's pretty nice. You just turn the little thing on the top here. When it starts blinking green, you've got GPS fix, drop it in the water, bring it right back up, and it imports right into our sound velocity program. Single beam editor, we talked about the E20, we're able to process the E20 32-bit echograms in here. We've had back from the previous version of HYPACK 2021, it was a bit slow and clunky trying to load these files in the program because they are the bin files are pretty big. So we sped up the drawing there, the loading and drawing and everything. It looks a whole lot better. We've got the little signal scale window here, so you increase or decrease that contrast, get a little bit better of a image, a little bit easier to digitize. You can also split the echogram into 2 separate windows if you want. So especially if you're looking at, detail, a bit more detail, high versus low, you can kind of separate them or just overlay them on top of each other if you want. It just gives the user a different display option. What else? We did some changes to the overlay under the file drop-down menu. There's an overlay option where you can take a previous survey and overlay it, so you can just compare the difference in depths of a conditional survey or whatever. And we've added more functionality to that spreadsheet, so that's available in the SPMX 64. And here's a nice feature too. In SB Max 64, we've added built-in sorting and contouring. So the idea here is that, you want to do you're doing a quick survey, you want to just run the sort program. It takes quite a few steps. You got to run the sort program, click your XYZ, take that into tin model, run your contour, display it in the shell and everything. Well, now all the stuff is built into SB Max. So if you hit the sort button, you'll get the little sort dialog like we see here. It's your standard sorting routines. You can sort based on depth 1 or depth 2. You enter your radius or delta X or Y. And it'll display the sorted soundings right on your screen. If you don't like it, you just run it again, and remove them until you get what you're expecting. And it's the same with the contours. You click on contours. It's basically the tin model contouring engine, and you get that dialog that most are familiar with it from the tin model. Again, you don't have to go shell out to the tin model. You set your settings in the window here. You can auto scale the colors, which is a nice feature. You hit the test button, it'll draw your contours right on the screen. Not too happy with the results, just run it again and do it until you get your results. So a lot of steps being saved here, which is really nice and make it a lot easier for customers to do it quick and dirty, sort and contour.
It's very valuable, especially if you're going to use HYPACK from the beginning to the end of your job. And a lot of folks still do that. Not everybody does, but if you're going to use HYPACK and you want to, sort your data out and you want to create these contours for whatever final products or whatever plots you might need, well, this is great because you can take what used to be 3 separate programs. We borrow the sort routine, we take the tin model engine. You could do it all in the single beam editor, which is also that much improved. Mm-hmm. And this was 3 separate processes when I was first taught how to do this stuff, and when we did the initial single beam trainings for HYPACK users. So it's exciting to take these and whittle it down and say, what do we really need? What can we do to make it that much more intuitive and easy to use?
Mm-hmm. Okay. MBE Max 64, we had an option to do a direct export to ArcGIS. We've been working close with Esri over the past couple of years, and this functionality under the file drop-down menu, the data that you have displayed on the screen, if you go to the file drop-down, hit the save Esri TIFF file, it's a specific type of TIFF file that's can be directly imported into ArcGIS. And they have a lot of tools in there that it contains. It's not just a pixel or RGB color. There's a bit more information in there, and you'll be able to massage the data right inside Esri, which is kind of a nice feature. So we're able to work close with them in order to import the data. So in this example here in the middle, we've got their MB Max display, and then here is that data that's imported right into Esri. Some more stuff in MB Max 64. A big one was my Combac's been working in there to improve the drawing, the much faster drawing, just loads the data quicker, just draws faster. Changed some of the options in here, the show options. We've added a few more, like we've added the direction arrows in here. I think at first they were added and somebody complained, well, they don't want to see them. So we, you start changing the show options in the top, and it starts getting a little bit more unwieldy. There's a lot of options. So you can click on more and just check and uncheck what you don't want to see on the screen. So we've added, the options to turn on and off the direction arrows, the matrix outline that shows the border of the matrix, the SVP casts. Most of these devices that we import the data from, we're also importing their GPS position. So you can display that SVP position right in the survey screen of MB Max. Okay, and a few other things we've done here. We can read, depending on the device, sonar frequency information from RMB or the SNR records, depending on which device is being used. We've added the option to save the WGS84 positions in the HSX file last year, maybe. It has all the GEODESY information, so you don't have to do a raw file conversion all the time. You don't need to have those raw files all the time. Well, we neglected to add it to the HS2X, the edited file, so that had been added over the past year or two. We've improved on the S7K data loading and also supporting the Konigsberg CAML files.
So much work is spent improving existing features and drivers every year, and that does sometimes go underappreciated. So again, our programming team really, they always every year look inward and say, well, what can we improve, of the stuff that we already have out there for the public. So again, thank you.
And it's all user driven, it's a lot of, we get probably hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of requests every year. And there's only so many that you do. It's such a small group, and we do our best.
Right. And tech support, they do a tremendous job of fielding most of those calls, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
They hear about it all the time, whether it's in the field or over the phone. You call into tech support. But Karen Zacharias and the tech support staff do a great job, and they hand it off to Joseph Adamski and the programmers, and somewhere in the midst, you get to do your dance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Try to decipher it all and figure it out.
Yeah, move forward. Yeah.
We've MBMax 64 also has a LiDAR calibration cloud window too, which is really nice. LiDAR loading LiDAR into MBMax was somewhat of an afterthought, once we start getting more into LiDAR systems, and we needed a better way to actually do the calibration. So uses the cloud points instead of the cross sections of it, the traditional patch testing, and it has the controls, the step calibration down below here, so you can play around with these values and set your calibration in real time. Big time saver when you're doing LiDAR calibration.
Obviously important, because that's the future of this survey field. We're going to see so many more people turn to LiDAR in the next few years, so it's important for us to have these tools.
Yeah. The sweep window data border, which you bring up the sweep window, and depending on how many sweeps that you're displaying on the screen, it'll show your border of sweeps right on the survey window also, which is nice. Okay. Custom colors, a lot of stuff going on in MBMax here. Yeah, Mike's been pretty busy. Yeah, Andrew, they've been doing a lot of stuff in here. Custom colors, defining different custom colors in here, which kind of a nice feature here, just a little bit more user intuitive and stuff too. We've also added the export colors to HCF files. So, you have the nice color display, kind of auto scale colors in MBMax. It's a little hard to mimic that with the color file. So we just add the option to create a color file right in, export the color file right in MBMax. So, and those can be imported into any other program.
So much work for Mike Comback to oversee this friendly beast, I always call it. MBMax is really our flagship program, and it's been what the other programs look to as SBMax 64, and the other editors are now starting to look more and more like MBMax. But tremendous work to keep this thing going and updated.
Yeah. And we've also added a function to use the project rounding rules in MBMax when you're saving out to an XYZ file. This comes in handy, especially if you're, you want to control your rounding. The idea was that this was some of the data would be imported into another package. For example, the Army Corps has their eHydro, and they have their own rounding tools inside. Well, it could have rounded a little bit different than what was rounded in HYPACK, depending on how you had it set. So now we can actually apply the rounding rules to the data when it's exported, and then this way it can be imported, the way they want into the other package. And also we've added a function for the auto processing, and we've added the auto processing feature a couple years back for MBMax 64, where it's running alongside the survey program, and as soon as the HSX file is loaded, it is collected, gets loaded into the editor, and in the background does some minor filtering if you want, and then saves it out to HS2X. We have actually functionality here for exporting to an XYZ file too. And this kind of specific right now, saving 1 point per cell with the average value being saved. Okay, here's a big one. This has been a big project for Will Bergman. This is kind of a long time coming. It's HYPLOT Max. Right now, it's replaced the HYPLOT Multi that we had. It's quite different from the other HYPLOT program, where it's using paper space instead of kind of geodetic space, and it's really totally different from what you would expect from HYPLOT. So we've been getting some good feedback for it. You know, it's once you get the hang of it, it's actually really easy to use. It's great because you can add, set your sheet size. You can create you don't need to import or make a plotting sheet from the plotting sheet editor. You can create a plot sheet right there in the program. So you could do either one, import or load it up. It plots all your background files as always. You know, anything you have enabled in the shell will automatically be enabled, and you can just enable and disable items per map on the screen here. Import all kinds of backgrounds, you know, JPEGs and images, create your own title blocks, multiple undos. And one nice feature is that, you know, you don't have to go to the control panel every time you want to make a slight change. Everything is done under this properties section here. So you highlight, for example, I don't know, your color bar here, and you're going to get your color bar properties over here. So you can drag it around anywhere you want on the screen, or just define everything under the properties. It's a really nice program. So we're excited to get that out there for users and get some feedback.
Yeah, Will Bergman did a great job. It's really sharp. It's intuitive. It's easy to use, and it has now a new chassis. It's a new foundation that HYPLOT will use going forward. And I guess the idea is to sunset the old HYPLOT program with this one in the coming years.
Eventually, yeah. Once people, you know, get more feedback, and you know, we get some more ideas, and just make sure we haven't left out anything too. So that's what we got.
Really nice.
Mm-hmm. Next, how are we doing here? TIN model. The 2D drawing window had been improved, a lot faster, cleaner. Also, the volume report options, we've had the PDF in here. We also add functionality to export to CSV and XLS. So a lot easier to take this data into another, you know, into another program if you need to add all your volume stuff to a report. We've got a lot, some more functionality in here.
And it's a smarter looking table. It's easier than just having a text file. You know,
exactly.
Yeah. So much easier.
Mm-hmm. Cloud. This was a request by somebody, is that when you're rotating, you get the little axis at the bottom here, and also the perimeter display, the little rectangular box, I should say, that surrounds the data. Well, you know, sometimes when you're showing it on the screen there, it does sort of get in the way, or you're trying to get a nice screen capture or something, and you don't want to see that. So we had the functionality to just be able to turn that off in the settings. So you can check that box, hide axis, and you know, when you start rotating it, you're not going to see the axis or the perimeter box.
And a power user might understand the orientation of the data. They don't need to see it. They don't want the axis there. So you now have your option. Hey, Kevin.
Yeah. And then on the left-hand side, we got the file list view. We had this last year also, but you can, you know, enable or disable the files without having to unload them and reload them. So kind of nice. And then ADCP profile, we're doing a little bit more with some of the water quality stuff. So this has been updated. The information has been updated with more extensive information, and you know, a little bit of stuff for everybody. Okay. The magnetometer / environmental editor. I mentioned earlier, there's a drop down for the environmental editor. It's basically the magnetometer in a specific mode. It's basically there to support time series data from mostly environmental sensors. You know, so for example, we can import or collect, you know, EXO bin files or similar type files. There could be up to you know, 32 different sensors on some of these environmental sensors, you know, different various, you know, salinity, temperature, and all that. And so you can load all this stuff in the spreadsheet, display the different graphs on the screen, and it also has the built-in sorting and contouring as in SPMAX 64. So there's a lot of functionality going here.
Really nice to be able to put a position to any type of sensor that you have in this realm. So it's really become our X, Y, and anything editor. Whatever your Z value is, we can edit that.
Yeah. And then cross sections and volumes, we've added functionality to export the sections to image files. This has been a request for a number of years. So you can save it out to JPEG, PNG, bitmap files. They get stored in the edit folder, in the little images folder. So it just makes it a lot easier to import your sections into a report. And I think that's pretty much it. Most of you know that HYPACK 22 was postponed from January to March. So, you know, we'd love to see you guys there if you can make it, March 28th to the 31st. And you can also check a lot of information up. We have our Sounding Better newsletter. So we've written articles for this quarter based on all the new functionality in HYPACK 2022. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, and we also will be coming to you at least for 1 or 2 more quarterly updates this year in the same fashion, right? I believe we did that for 2021. We'll do that again. And special thanks again to Thomas Beeson and Bottom Line Echo for hosting us here. Mm-hmm. And Brittany, do we have any time for questions?
Yes, we're going to take a few questions. We are short on time, but if your questions go unanswered, we will follow up with you via email over the next few days. And this webinar is recorded, so we will also be sending out an on-demand version for you to view. So let's go ahead and answer some questions, Rob and John.
Okay, so first off, what about the soft license? If the computer isn't always going to be connected to the internet, do we have an answer to that? What's the status?
Yeah, I believe you don't have to be connected for up to 90 days. So as long as you get connected somehow within 90 days, you can. It should be no problem.
Okay, and any issues with that soft license with any of the government agencies, like specifically ACIT or any of the other IT things that we might come across?
That's still up in the air. I think we're still waiting on that too. We're waiting for ACIT to approve HYPACK 2022, and I guess we'll see. And if there are issues, we'll address them immediately.
Okay. Obviously, NOAA's overseeing the VDATUM update. So what if someone wants to use VDATUM in their GEODESY, but they're outside of the United States?
That's specific to, I think that's specific to the US. I don't know of any other VDATUM. I believe France has some VDATUM files that they mimic the format. So those theoretically should be be able to copy them right in the folder and work that way also.
And the last time we had it within the install, the French VDATUMs, I believe, were included in that VDATUM folder. So yeah, they should be able to bring them over.
Yes, okay. Yeah, and I believe they have been updated.
And we had a question about the device health window and how it works. Does it work? Yes. How does it work with the HYSWEEP devices? So how does that divide up the devices, and what is it looking for? Yeah, it's basically tracking your time tagging from HYPACK devices, HYSWEEP devices, side scan devices, and looking for variances. And if those variances change a little bit more than comparing with different devices, then you're going to get a little warning light popping up. Depending on you're working some devices, for example, a tide gauge. It might appear to be a warning that you've got